The night the billionaire collapsed in his arms, Daniel Reyes hadn't expected to become anyone's hero, least of all hers. He was just trying to finish his shift, mop the last hallway, and get home before his daughter's fever spiked again. But fate has a strange way of choosing ordinary people for extraordinary moments. It began with a scream. Daniel was pushing his mop bucket toward the service elevator when he heard it, sharp, terrified, echoing through the marble corridors of the Beaumont Hotel's top floor. The kind of sound that makes your heart lurch before your mind even understands why. He sprinted without thinking, his boots slipping on the polished floor, his breath ragged as he followed the second scream. At the end of the hallway, a woman staggered out of the executive suite, tall, elegant, and trembling. Her hands clawed at her throat. She gasped soundlessly, her face flushing red, then terrifyingly pale. Daniel froze for half a second. Then instinct took over. She couldn't breathe. He rushed forward, catching her just before she collapsed. Her eyes were wild with fear, pleading in a way that made his chest split open. He recognized her immediately, everyone who worked at the hotel did. Victoria Hale, Billionaire CEO. Flawless, fierce, unreachable. Rumored to fire executives for arriving 3 minutes late. Rumored to be made of steel. But there was nothing steel about the way her body shook against his. Her lips were turning blue. Daniel remembered the training he'd been forced to take years ago before budget cuts canceled it. She was choking, no, swelling. Allergic reaction. Her EpiPen must not be nearby. She didn't have minutes. She had seconds. Her bag lay on the floor inside the suite, spilled open. He dragged her toward it, one arm holding her up, the other rummaging desperately. Pens, keys, wallet, but no EpiPen. Victoria's fingers clutched his shirt weakly, her breaths barely choking through. He didn't think, there wasn't time for thinking. He only acted. He pressed his mouth to hers and gave her breath. A simple, desperate action. A moment where life hung by a thread. But it was enough to buy her a sliver of time until the paramedics arrived, time that saved her life. And it changed his. She woke in the hospital confused, fragile in a way that felt impossibly human. Daniel tried to slip out quietly, hoping to get back to his daughter before the school nurse called again. But Victoria's voice stopped him. "You saved my life, why?" Her eyes, normally sharp, commanding, were soft, bewildered. "Because you needed help," he answered simply. Anyone would have done the same. But she looked at him as if knowing he was wrong. From that night, Victoria Hale wasn't just a billionaire anymore. She was a woman shaken awake, forced to confront how fragile even the untouchable could be. And Daniel was no longer invisible. Their paths tangled quickly after that. She wanted to thank him properly, but Daniel kept dodging her gestures. It wasn't humility, it was life. Real life. The kind that didn't wait for gratitude. His daughter, Mia, had chronic asthma. The hospital bills were suffocating. His ex-wife had left without looking back. Janitorial wages barely kept them afloat. Every moment he wasn't working was a moment he feared losing everything. Daniel didn't have the luxury of being noticed, and he wasn't used to it. But Victoria kept showing up. First, at the hospital to check on him after the incident. Then at the hotel, asking questions no one ever asked the janitors. "How long have you worked here? Do you have family? Are you okay?" She had a way of looking at him that made him feel seen, really seen, in a way no one had since before his life fell apart. Still, he tried to keep distance. Their worlds weren't just different, they were galaxies apart. But distance became impossible the day Mia collapsed at school. Daniel rushed her to the emergency room, panic clawing at his throat. The doctor's words were a punch to the gut. Severe asthma progression, specialized treatment required, expensive specialist visits not covered by his insurance. He broke down in the hospital bathroom, fists pressed to his eyes, because he didn't know how he was going to save his daughter. He didn't know Victoria had been in the lobby, dropping off a thank you gift he hadn't wanted. She found him sitting on the floor, shaking. When he tried to hide his face, she knelt beside him. "Tell me what happened," she said gently. He didn't want to burden her. Didn't want to seem weak. Didn't want pity from someone who lived in penthouses and traveled on private jets. But the words poured out anyway, about Mia, about the bills, about feeling like he was drowning every single day. Victoria didn't speak for a long time. Then she did something no one expected, not even her. "Let me help," she whispered. "Please." Daniel refused at first, pride mixed with fear, but when Mia's condition worsened and bills piled high, he finally allowed Victoria to pay for the specialist visit. She didn't make him feel small for it. She didn't expect anything in return. Slowly, their lives began to intertwine. Victoria visited Mia at the hospital, bringing books, puzzles, little gifts. Mia instantly adored her, calling her Tori. They spent afternoons laughing together in a way that softened something deep inside Victoria, something she hadn't realized had been hardened by years of loneliness and pressure. In Daniel, he found himself watching Victoria differently. Not as a billionaire, not as a boss, but as a woman with a fragile beating heart, someone capable of fierce loyalty and quiet kindness. Someone who carried her own scars. They were from different worlds, but somehow those worlds didn't feel so far apart anymore. But life is rarely generous without complications. The media discovered their connection. Headlines exploded. Billionaire CEO romance with hotel janitor. Victoria Hale's secret savior revealed. Rumors twisted the truth into ugly narratives. Daniel became a target, mocked online, harassed outside the hotel. Some hotel staff whispered that he'd used the accident to climb social ladders. Victoria's board accused her of compromising the company's reputation. Mia faced cruel comments at school. Daniel wanted to disappear. For the first time since meeting Victoria, he pushed her away. "I can't let my daughter suffer because of me," he told her. "This, whatever this is, it's hurting her." Victoria's voice cracked. "I never wanted to make your life harder." "You didn't," he said softly. "But being near you does." He walked away. For days, Victoria threw herself into work, pretending she didn't feel hollow. Daniel returned to long shifts, pretending he didn't miss her. But missing her became a physical ache. And Mia wasn't pretending at all. She cried when she realized she wouldn't see Victoria again. One evening, Daniel found a crayon drawing tucked into Mia's backpack. It was of the three of them, Mia in the middle, holding their hands. Underneath, in uneven handwriting, "My family." Daniel broke. He realized he'd been protecting Mia from a fear that wasn't real, because the truth was, she had been happier with Victoria in her life. And so had he. He was letting the world shame him out of happiness he had never believed he deserved. He went to find Victoria. She was in her office, staring blankly at the city skyline when he walked in. Her eyes widened in surprise, then softened with something fragile and hopeful. "I'm sorry," Daniel began, voice trembling. "I thought walking away was the safest choice. But Mia, she loves you. And he swallowed. I love you too. More than I thought I could love anyone again." Victoria's breath hitched. She stepped toward him slowly, as if afraid he might disappear. "You think I care what the world says?" she whispered. "You saved my life. And then you gave me something no amount of money ever could, a family. I'm not letting go of you." They embraced, and for the first time, Daniel allowed himself to believe he could have more than survival, that he could have joy. Their challenges didn't magically vanish. The world still whispered. The media still speculated. But they faced it together. Victoria used her influence to launch a charity for single parents with medical hardships, inspired by Daniel's struggle. She refused to let the board dictate her heart. Daniel continued working, by choice, not necessity, proud of who he was. And Mia finally received consistent treatment and grew stronger every day. They didn't become perfect, but they became real, imperfect, messy, fiercely connected. In the end, the story wasn't about a billionaire saved by a kiss or a janitor rising against all odds. It was about how two broken lives collided in a moment of crisis, and how love, kindness, and courage stitched those broken pieces into something stronger. Something that changed everything.